Hello, and welcome back to Cat Tales. I'm Kathy Palmer, and behind the camera is Ken Stomsky. Once in a while, we try to bring you a story that we hope you'll be interested in and enjoy. And today's story, because Halloween is coming, today's story is a very classic tale that a lot of us know and love, and that would be The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Now let me tell you, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow was written by Washington Irving, and it was published in 1840. In this story, he tells a tale of a schoolmaster named Ichabod Crane. Now, although it's not a real person, he did know someone named Ichabod Crane. The story takes place in Sleepy Hollow, New York. There really is a Sleepy Hollow, New York. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the story at the end when we're finished. This particular tale might be called a folk tale, it might be called a tall tale, and it might be called a legend. So there's a lot of different ways to describe it. Usually, a folk tale is a story that people tell over and over and over again in a certain region. So this is a tale that certainly we've heard many, many times. Ichabod Crane was a schoolmaster in a quiet little village called Sleepy Hollow. Sleepy Hollow lay in a peaceful valley near the Hudson River. Nothing really much ever happened in Sleepy Hollow, and every day was pretty much like the day before it. Ichabod boarded with different families in Sleepy Hollow, and he lived a week at one house, and then he lived another week at another house. At every house, Ichabod would hear the story of a mysterious rider who roamed through the woods at night on a fast, dark horse. This story scared Ichabod. Why? Because the rider had no head. You see, the story had been told that the rider had been a soldier in the Revolutionary War, and a cannonball shot off his head. And so ever since then, he's been riding through Sleepy Hollow trying to find his missing head. Now, every time Ichabod heard that story, he would lay awake at night trembling in fear. But it was their story to tell, and the people of Sleepy Hollow loved telling this story over and over again. Now, there was one place that Ichabod really didn't mind hearing the story, and that was at the Van Tassel's farm. For you see, Mr. Van Tassel was the richest homeowner in the whole village. Not only was he the richest homeowner, but he also had a very beautiful daughter named Katrina. Ichabod was in love with Katrina. He even gave her singing lessons. And whenever the tale of the headless horseman was told, he was too busy looking at Katrina to really listen to this tale. Actually, he was dreaming of all the money he would make if he ever owned the Van Tassel farm. Now, the only problem was, you see, Katrina had another boyfriend, and his name was Brom Bones. And Brom Bones was handsome and dashing and brave. All the things that Ichabod did not think that he was. But Katrina was, she was very fond of Ichabod because Ichabod read books and knew things, and she knew that Brom Bones never read a book in his life. Brom realized that Katrina might choose Ichabod someday, and so he set out to drive Ichabod away. The first thing he did was stuff up the chimney where Ichabod was giving the ladies singing lessons, and smoke poured into the building, and all of the ladies had to run outside. Ichabod felt very, very foolish about that. And the next thing that Brom did was he snuck into the schoolhouse where Ichabod worked, and he turned over all the desks and chairs and spilled the inkwells. And he tried to make it look like maybe a ghost had done it. Oh, Katrina said, you should tell Brom to stop this nonsense at once. But Ichabod was not quite that brave, and he said, oh, Brom Bones he's just having a little fun with me. He doesn't mean any harm. Now, one day after school, a young boy rode up to the schoolhouse. Ichabod had been invited to a party at the Van Tassel farm. He was very excited. He rushed home to get ready for the party, and he put on his finest suit, which wasn't very fine, but it was the best that he had. And then he found a horse to get on. The horse's name was Charlie, and even though he was tattered, he felt handsome. And as he rode off on the old horse, he said, I shall propose to Ichabod tonight. And at the farm, the party had already begun. Ichabod had never seen such fine food and such beautiful clothing in his entire life. He danced with Katrina, and he had a wonderful time. That is until Brom Bones showed up, and he began to tell the story. I met the headless horseman last night, bragged Brom, and a crowd gathered around him. He tried to race me, Brom continued. Now, there we were, out there, riding neck and neck until we came to the bridge. You have to get to the bridge, my friend. You have to get to the bridge. What happened, everyone said. What happened? When we got to the bridge, the headless horseman vanished and was gone. Ha 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 ha, laughed Brom Bones. Ichabod felt a chill creeping up his arms, and his hair rose on his neck, and he thought of the long, lonely road back home. What would happen if he met the headless horseman all by himself? The party was over. Ichabod spoke to Katrina. No one ever knew what Katrina said to him, for no one ever heard what they said together. But Ichabod looked very sad when he left. He leaped onto Charlie, and he began racing through the woods as quickly as possible. The story of the headless horseman was in his mind as he rode off into the cold, dark night all by himself. His heart was pounding, and finally he could see the brook, and he could see the bridge ahead. I'm going to make it, he thought. It's not far. As he listened to every whistle and shout and the wind blowing in his ear, suddenly the horse stopped dead in his tracks. Ichabod sat up, and straight ahead he saw a figure in the moonlight. Who's there? He called. Who's there? And the figure came closer and closer, and he could see that it was the headless horseman riding on his horse with what looked like a head in his hands. Oh no, thought Ichabod. He screamed and he dug his heels into the horse and he leaped toward the bridge. He thought, if I can only get to the bridge, I'll be safe. Go faster, said Ichabod, go faster. If I could only get to the bridge, if I can only get to the bridge, then the rider will be gone. And when he reached the bridge, the headless horseman was right behind him. He didn't vanish at all. And before he had a moment to think about it, when Ichabod turned and looked, he saw the horseman throw his head right at the terrified Ichabod. The next morning, Ichabod's head was lying on the bridge all by itself. And next to his head was a smashed pumpkin. But after that, Ichabod Crane was never seen in the village again, ever. Now, some people say that perhaps the headless horseman caught him at last. Other people said no, he was so frightened that he ran to the next village where he met a widow who had a lot of money, and they lived happily ever after. But if you ask Brom Bones what happened to Ichabod, Brom Bones will just sit back and laugh and laugh and laugh. And that's all you will get from Brom Bones. And we never heard from Ichabod Crane again. So I like this story, boys and girls, because when I got through with this story, Washington Irving let me decide what I thought. Now, there are many different endings to this tale. In fact, in one of his endings, he says that Ichabod Crane was elected mayor in another city. So we never get to know. We get to decide for ourselves, and you get to decide what he actually threw at him. If you look closely at this picture, you can see that he's holding a jack-o'-lantern. Now, like a lot of stories, there is some truth to this story, because as I said in the beginning, there really was a man named Ichabod Crane, and when this story was published about 200 years ago, he used the name of somebody he knew. But the other thing that's true is there truly is a legend of a Hessian soldier who supposedly still haunts the area from the Revolutionary War. And there are a lot of ghost stories that center around this part of New York. It's on the Hudson River, very active fighting area during the Revolutionary War. So when you're done with this story, I really think you might want to Google Washington Irving. You might want to go back and look up the Revolutionary War and find out what some of the history was in the New York area and who they were fighting. You might also enjoy some other tall tales while you're home and you have nothing else to do on TV. I don't know if that's possible, but you might want to look up some really fun American folk tales like Johnny Appleseed and Paul Bunyan. Great stories to listen to, great stories for you to get interested in. You might want to write your own folk tale or draw your own pictures. You might want to draw your own jack-o'-lanterns or carve your own jack-o'-lantern. And did you know the first jack-o'-lanterns carved were made from turnips, not pumpkins at all? So look up the historical information on jack-o'-lanterns. We hope you enjoyed the story, and we'll see you back here again. Thank you, and have a safe Halloween. Boo.